Hello, hello. This is AIB Radio. We're going to talk here tonight a little bit about the foundation of the Coram Nobis and the Coram non-Juda here. Seems to be some confusion here on these documents. So we're going to sit here, we're going to open up, and we're going to explain a little bit about what these documents are, so you can have a better understanding of what this stuff is, how it's supposed to work. We need to go back in, and you need to understand several different things here on these documents. Number one, it goes back in and exposes the entire fraud of the court system. It goes back in and shows how the courts have been operating under the Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act, and how they've been given themselves immunity and have been operating in a foreign state capacity against American citizens in this country. You need to go back and read under the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, Rule 4J. You also need to go back and read under the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, Rule 17, of interested party, on who can bring charges against you in that courtroom. These are some of the foundations that you're going to have to go back in and understand. And you're going to have to also understand that we are exposing these judges to a lot of corruption, and we're going back in exposing the embezzlement that the courts are creating against the people. First off, the judge is not supposed to be the one who is sitting down and setting the jurisdiction in these courts. That jurisdiction falls right back into the plaintiff, the accuser, whether it is the prosecutor, whether it is child services, whether it's IRS, whether it's the bank. No matter what the circumstances is, it is supposed to be set by the person who brought you into that courtroom. The Coram Nobis and the Coram non-Juda is strictly a defensive tool. It is for challenging the jurisdiction of these courts. It's not designed to go in and be used as if you are the plaintiff. Go in, because you don't want to go in and sit down and say, well, I'm the plaintiff here, and this court don't have jurisdiction. This is strictly for a defensive move. It's strictly for the defendant to come in and defend himself within the court system. You're also going to find out that when you start running this, the judge are going to be very intimidated with some of this stuff. They're going to want to go out, and you're going to have your paperwork either a possibility of being dismissed by the court, being frivolous, being stricken from the paperwork, being stricken from the record. Judges are going to do everything they can to get around this, because with this documentation, the judge only has two options with you. And these two options that he's dealing with, either he has to dismiss this thing in your favor, or he's going to sit here and blatantly break the law. But before he dismisses this thing, he's got to get you off subject, got to get you off point. And the Coram Nobis and the Coram non-Juda, there's only two things that you have to do. Two. One is stay on point. No matter what that judge tries to do to get you off, you have to stay on point. And that point is jurisdiction. Like we have discussed in other episodes, jurisdiction is supposed to be set by the accuser, because there's so many different types of jurisdictions out here, such as admiralty jurisdiction, which everybody has talked about, maritime jurisdiction, administrative jurisdiction. You have federal jurisdiction, you've got state jurisdiction, you've got county jurisdiction, you've got municipal jurisdiction, you've got religious jurisdiction, you've got criminal jurisdiction, you've got civil jurisdiction, you've got family jurisdiction. The list goes on and on and on and on. with each one of these jurisdictions is also a set of laws that's supposed to go with these jurisdictions, so you know what you're doing when you're walking in that courtroom. You can't use a bankruptcy law if you're in here in a traffic case. You can't use corporate law if you're out here on a criminal case. They can't bring in maritime law if you're out here and you're dealing with a divorce. All these different jurisdictions have to be set. All these jurisdictions have to be declared so we know what the rules are when we're walking into these courtrooms. But because they're not setting them, and we have discovered that these courts are operating under the Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act, that means the jurisdiction of these courts are operating in a foreign state capacity. Operating in a foreign state capacity means that they have no jurisdiction over the American citizens because we come under the 11th Amendment. We're not subject to a foreign state. This is what these courts have used throughout the years whenever we have brought charges against our office. They've always screamed, 11th Amendment immunity, 11th Amendment immunity. We can't be sued by a foreign state. We never realized that that foreign state that they was talking about was us when we brought charges against them. Well, this also goes in the other way. If we are a foreign state to them, then that makes them a foreign state to us. That means they cannot bring the American people in and sue the American people on the law or equity. They can't bring charges against us. As we've talked about the Coram Nobis, this goes back in and explains also the different aspects of this, that under the Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act, if they're bringing us in as a corporation, then as that corporation, then they have to give us immunity under this Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act. Now, what's the foundation for the corporation? Like we have discussed here in previous episodes, the Style Manual, which was a manual that was created by the Bar Association for Congress and for the courts. That Style Manual is their grammar book. This goes in and redefines the grammar that we've been taught in school. It goes in, if they use all caps, that's what makes you a corporation. This is part of the scam that they're running on American people. We've also discovered under the Delaware Code, under Title 8, under corporations, under Chapter 6, under 617, how do you name a corporation? Well, a corporation has to have a last name. We've also discovered the Incorporate Trust Company of the Delaware Trust, Wilmington Trust, and Corporate Trust Company of America out of Delaware that goes back in on March 10th, 1899, where the Esquires, the Bar Association, has went in before the Delaware legislation and has asked them to sit down and create a law, an act providing a general corporate law, which means they wanted the natural person or the corporation to be a natural person. They want the corporation to have all the same rights, all the same privileges. They want the corporation to be registered within the state in the same manner as a natural person. So this is where we come up with how they nailed us. And we're also trying to get our hands on some information prior to March 10th, 1899, where the United States Supreme Court had went back and ruled several years prior to this that a corporation is a natural person, that a corporation has to have the ability to be able to buy, to sell, to be able to function within a state as a living, breathing human being. So by setting the stage, by allowing a corporation to take the image of a person, this is how the courts are nailing it, the American citizens in this country. And this is pretty much going to be probably worldwide if you go back and check that they're also bringing you in your country as a corporation. Foundation of the Coram Nobis is that if you go back in and read Black's Law Dictionary, the Coram Nobis goes back and explains to the court that, excuse me, there's been an error made. Someone failed to disclose. Somebody withheld information. Now, whether it was done deliberately, whether it was done intentionally, or whether it was done through intimidation and through threat that this information was withheld, goes back in and tells the court that someone failed to disclose information in this hearing that could have set you free, that could have changed the course of this trial. This is what the Coram Nobis is. Now, they're going to go back and tell you, some people coming in, well, they repealed this and put it under Rule 4, under Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, Rule 60. Thing is, Coram Nobis still shows up in Black's Law Dictionary today. It still goes back in. It still has the same purpose and the same meaning. An error has been made. Someone failed to disclose. You're giving this court the opportunity to sit down and correct the record. Now, what we've been dealing with and have found out is some of these courts are dismissing immediately. Some of the judges are challenging the people. People, the foundation of the Coram Nobis and the foundation of the Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act goes back in to what we've discussed back in 1933 under 49 Statute 3097 under Treaty Series 8881 under the Conventions and Duties of the States on December 26, 1933. Congress went in and relinquished the state statutes and turned everything over into international law. On December 9, 1945, under the International Organization Immunities Act, Congress went in and relinquished every single public office over to the UN, bar none. We found this and backed it up with the International Reorganization Rescind Act that a judge filed paperwork into the United States Supreme Court declaring what Congress did in 1945 was unconstitutional. It was not valid because Congress never once brought it up before the people for the people to sit here and agree to this. The Supreme Court on October 5, 2005 declined to hear this case. The International Reorganization Rescind Act was never rescinded. It's still intact today. The judge went back and made all the issues to prove that Congress did relinquish all these public offices over. Under Title 8 of the United States Code 1481, it goes back and explains that whenever you took an oath of office, you had to relinquish your citizenship to this country. Under Title 22 of the United States Code, under Chapter 11, under foreign agents, this is what happens to you whenever you stay here and relinquish. You become a foreign agent. Under Title 22 CFR 92.12 to 92.32, these are the oaths of office. And this thing falls under the foreign relationship. Falls back under international law for the oath of office. These are the foundations of what we're dealing with. This is the foundations that we've never supposed to found out about and never dealt with. So this is why when we're walking into these courtrooms and we're found this kind of paperwork, it is now intimidating the courts because now we're exposing the fraud. We're now exposing the corruption and the misuse of what they're doing to the people. Now, some of these cases we've had people report where the judges have brought in extra security guards to stand behind the people. From what we have discovered, this is where you sit down and make a very simple statement and put it on the record, on the court, is that your intentions by bringing in these extra armed guards into this courtroom, that you are trying to threaten me and intimidate me, and that you have trying to cause me to have fear for my life, that by me bringing forth the truth into this courtroom to defend myself properly, you're now intimidating me and you're threatening to kill me in this courtroom? by having these armed guards that all you have to do is say, shoot this person down,